We have a continent split by ideology. We have barbed wire, secret police, and people who just kept pushing against it anyway. I'm Matt Haskell. I'm a high school history teacher, and I'm taking you through Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire." We're at the end of the line of this song where we end up with Communist Bloc. It was Rockefeller, Campanella, Communist Bloc. So let's kind of set the story here, right? So when Billy Joel fires off Rockefeller, Campanella, Communist Bloc, he's compressing 4 decades of the Cold War into 2 words. Bloc means a Soviet-led alliance of communist states in Eastern Europe. You know, they're connected, politically, economically, and militarily to Moscow. So how did it form? As World War II ended, the Red Army occupied much of Eastern Europe. In country after country, Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and for a time, Albania, the communist parties consolidated power. Non-communist rivals were sidelined, they were exiled or absorbed. Secret police, they blossomed, right? The economies were remade on like state planning and heavy industry. And there were 2 acronyms that, I should say one acronym that kind of stitched it together. First one was the Comecon, and that was like the Economic Coordination of 1949. And then there's the Warsaw Pact, which is a military alliance that was created in 1955. So if you want to kind of like feel what the Communist Bloc was like, you can kind of like get these mental snapshots in here. Like in Berlin in 1948 and 49, Stalin tried to squeeze the Western-controlled sectors, but the Berlin airlift kept the city alive, from the sky. In East Berlin in 1953, workers went on strike. Soviet tanks were there to answer. In Budapest in 1956, Hungarians rise for freedom, but they were crushed after a brief breath of hope. Prague, 1968, the Prague Spring, right? You have the experiments with socialism with a human face, but the Warsaw Pact rolls right in and squashes it. In Berlin in 1961, you have barbed wire, and that begins to like harden into the Berlin Wall, concrete proof that this was a prison that you couldn't leave. Then there was Gdansk, 1980, 1981. Shipyard workers launched Solidarity, the first mass independent union that existed behind the Iron Curtain. Afghanistan in 1979, the USSR invades, and the cost of this war bleeds Moscow both at home and abroad. Then we have 1985 to 1989, Mikhail Gorbachev's Glasnost and Perestroika that kind of loosened the screws of the Communist Bloc. And then in 1989, the communist governments begin to fall across Eastern Europe like dominoes. Now, daily life in the bloc wasn't just one note, right? There was education and guaranteed employment, but there was also shortages and long lines and just this like a constant hum of fear. You have surveillance states, so you have like the Stasi in East Germany or the Securitate in Romania. The culture lived in the margins. Samizdat literature passed hand to hand, underground music scenes, jokes that could be dangerous if told to the wrong person. And it wasn't monolithic. So, Yugoslavia split with Stalin in 1948 and began to chart its own path. China was communist, but followed a separate course, especially after the Sino-Soviet split. But even within the bloc, the communist bloc, leaders ranged from relatively, reformists like Dubček to like the iron-fisted, of Ceausescu. Now, all of this is packed into Billy Joel's 2 words, Communist Bloc. And the Communist Bloc is, was the other pole of a world organized around containment, proxy wars, nuclear brinksmanship, the other side of the Cold War, East versus West. It shaped borders and alliances and the lives of hundreds of millions of people until suddenly 1989 happens and the map gets redrawn. If we're going to tie this back to the song, Billy Joel is able to sing. He signals that this system, not just a country, is taking place here, right? So communist bloc is the Cold War's, it's architecture, walls, wire, and also an idea powerful enough to command and then be resisted. So why does it matter? Understanding the communist bloc explains the Cold War's logic, why NATO existed, why Berlin mattered, why uprisings in Budapest or Prague echoed around the world. It's a lesson in how alliances and ideology can freeze a map for decades until citizens and economics and leadership those changes can thaw out overnight. So, hey, drop a comment here. Maybe once I get outside the Billy Joel stuff, I can do an expose on some things you want to know about the communist bloc. Maybe the Berlin Wall or the Prague Spring. Since I'm sticking with the song here, though, for right now, with the song's order, the next name after communist bloc is Roy Cohn, and we'll go there next. Thanks a lot for watching.